Hey, I'm Jenna from Wordable, and you're listening to Marketing Routines, a podcast about the daily and weekly routines, tasks, and rituals that your favorite marketers are doing to bring them success every single day. Welcome to the Marketing Routines podcast. I'm Jenna Potter from Wordable, and today I have Eric Keating, the VP of Marketing of Appcues, here for an episode to talk about his daily habits and routines as a marketer, as well as his favorite tools, resources, and software. Appcues is a product adoption software that makes it really easy to create in-app experiences, and they also have tools that help you manage in-app activity and events. We use it and absolutely love it at Wordable for our onboarding flow and our product announcements. I'm excited to talk to Eric today about his marketing routines because he's been a big part of Appcues' success, including the launch of their product-led growth collective. I'm personally a big fan of all the resources Appcues puts out about onboarding and user experience, and it's really helping us shape the experience we're giving at Wordable. I highly recommend you also check out not only the product-led growth collective that I mentioned, but also their really good UX blog and their Pirate Metrics calculator. So let's get right into this episode and get to know Eric, who's one of the leaders behind these amazing resources. So without further ado, welcome to another episode of Marketing Routines. Hey Eric, how's it going?
Doing well, Jenna. Thanks for all those kind words. That's awesome to hear, both about our content and you all using the product. It's great.
I've honestly been a big fan of Appcues' content for a long time. I know I have a personal interest in onboarding and learning more about it, so it's like the go-to resource. So I'm really excited to see your daily routines and tasks and tools that you use to get all this stuff done. But let's start with your mornings. What does the first hour of your day usually look like?
Really, my first hour is me being woken up by one of my children, usually between 6 and 6:30, and then doing breakfast and puzzles for a little while. But once I get into work, my first hour is pretty predictable most of the time. I dedicate the first half hour to kind of preparing for my day. It's about 15 minutes of using a daily planner where I'll go through and typically review what I've already put in there the night before, make sure I'm feeling good about that. Then I'll spend 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much time I have, doing some kind of meditation. Just trying to get my head clear and ready for the day. And then right after that, the marketing team and I get together and do a stand-up and talk about where we're at with our work, any blockers that are preventing us from moving forward, etc. And then from there, just move into my regularly scheduled day.
So I imagine you have a long list of things you have to do when you sit down for your workday. How do you decide what you need to prioritize for that day ahead?
Yeah, well, I typically go into each week. I spend a little bit of time on either Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, kind of making sure I understand what are the big things, most important things I need to get done over the course of the next week. And then from there, I'll typically reserve one page of my daily planner to that, my kind of weekend notes. And then on Monday morning, I'll try to not only plan my day on Monday, or finish planning it from what I started Sunday night, but also do a little bit of Tuesday, Wednesday. And if there are really important things that need to get done that week, I will typically even put maybe a single task into Thursday or Friday because it's that important. So when I'm deciding which things to prioritize, having that weekly view up front is helpful. But we also, our team operates in with a loose, agile framework. We get together as a team every 2 weeks, review the work we've done over the past 2 weeks, talk about what we could have done better or differently, and then plan out the next 2 weeks of work. So in terms of overall priorities, things that I know I need to get done, the first kind of the higher level view on that is tackled in our sprint planning.
And you mentioned you use a planner. Is that a physical planner?
It's physical and digital. It's a digital notebook. There's a product called Remarkable. I think a very small niche group is very, very passionate about it. I think their exposure is growing, but what they've done is basically put together a tablet that is almost its sole purpose is writing. So it connects to the internet. so that I can, upload and download documents, but not to browse social media or go to LinkedIn or anything like that. So it really keeps you focused and creates this very similar to writing in a notebook type of feel with the convenience of having it all digitized. So that's what I've been using for my planner.
That's actually blowing my mind. It's exactly the kind of thing I've been wanting to find. I'm gonna have to check this out after this episode.
Yeah, check it out.
As far as your team at Appcues, do you use any kind of project management tools?
Yeah, so when we do our sprint planning, we use Asana for that. We, primarily relying on Asana. We use Notion as well for some organization, company-wide communication, making sure everybody has visibility into what we're working on. Beyond that, it's really just collaborating with Slack and Google Suite.
And as far as marketing tools and content marketing tools, what do you use on a daily basis?
So we're working with an agency on content. So there's collaboration between in-house and external. So there are some proprietary systems we're using for that. But it's a lot of your standard, nothing too impressive. Google Sheets for timelines and making all that our editorial calendar visible, etc. And then drafting, it's really just happening in Google Docs. And then we use Webflow as our CMS.
Now, you put out a lot of content at Appcues with a really good UX blog, as well as all these other resources you have. How do you put out so much content, and how do you organize that process with your agency you mentioned, and also your team? What does that look like from start to finish with a piece?
Yeah, well, I have to give props to a lot of people at Appcues that came before me. I mean, when I started at Appcues about 2.5 years ago, I inherited a content machine, right? I'm proud of how we've kept it up and expanded on it, but it takes a long time to get a content machine humming like ours, and the fact that we started right at the inception of the company, investing in producing high quality content on a regular basis and making 99.9% of it completely ungated. That's a huge reason why we're in the place we are today. When we're working on a piece from start to finish, periodically we'll get together and prioritize important topics, keywords, phrases, etc. We'll get a pitch for, hey, based on that prioritization, here's some article ideas. We'll review, approve, provide feedback, iterate, etc. Once we nail those down, get them into our priority order, then we're working from an outline to a draft, editing in-house, and then publish.
So moving on to email, how do you manage your inbox? How often do you check it, and what tools do you use? Because I know with all the guests we've had so far, that's the biggest pain point they face.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to be giving advice on how to manage an inbox, frankly. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Mine is not keeping on top of my inbox. But when my loose system for that is we use Google for email. I do use stars for flagging important notes that I can't follow up with right away. It's going to take me more than a couple of minutes to respond to this. And then I use the read and unread sort mechanism pretty religiously. Emails that I just can't get to when I see them, I leave them unread and sort my inbox that way, and just kind of keep it as a running list to go through. And I typically reserve spending any significant amount of time on email till hours when I know that I'm less, let's say, creative or productive, personally. So there are times when after we have dinner and I put the kids to bed, I'll hop back on and do some tasks that don't require as much mental capacity, getting through these unread emails, etc.
That's a good idea to save emails for low energy times, so you could save your most productive hours to creating new stuff. All right, let's move on to consuming content. How does that fit into your daily schedule, and who are your favorite creators, whether it's podcasts, authors, books, that type of thing?
Sure. Well, about 3 to 6 months ago, I started using this app called Pocket, which is a mobile app, but you can also have it I have it as a Chrome extension as well. Anytime there's an article that crosses my feed that I'm interested in, I'll pull it up, and as not to try not to get distracted from what I'm doing or how I plan my day, I'll typically use Pocket. You click this little icon for the extension, and it saves it basically into a reading list for you. And then I'll typically use, similar to what I was saying about, lower priority emails. I'll typically reserve that for maybe later in the night. If I'm sitting down, if I'm not listening to music, I might read some articles, listen to some podcasts. When I think about like the podcasts or books or resources that stand out to me, I probably don't do a lot of the typical marketing stuff. I don't actually consume a ton of content from my peers. I grew up really into music, and I was in bands, and I always found that listening to music that was the type of music I wanted to play, it just kind of made everything homogenous, if you will. So I was trying to listen to different genres of music, and I felt like that inspired my take on this genre we were trying to write music in. It inspired it to be a little different, it had some unique flares to it. So I don't, like I said, I don't listen to a ton of my peers, but I do draw inspiration from, psychology and sociology focused resources. I think when you think about just marketing, like some of my favorite books, Positioning from Al Ries, Alchemy from Rory Sutherfield. Yeah, man, he's from a big agency guy. And then on the more personal side, my favorite book ever, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. And another one I really loved was Walk in the Woods from Bill Bryson. They're just kind of like, thoughts and philosophy, psychology. That's the kind of stuff that really gets me going and does end up inspiring the way that I work as well.
Do you still play music?
I do. It's like the majority of the music I play today is, children's songs on my acoustic guitar. But yeah, someday I aspire to start playing for myself again.
I just started learning bass for the first time, so that's been a fun little project during the pandemic. My background is also in the music industry, so it's interesting to see that that you're interested in that as well.
Yeah. I went to school for music industry. That was my major.
That's awesome. Where did you go to school?
Northeastern in Boston.
Oh, all right. So, this brings me to my next question is, what do you like to do when you're not working and during your resting time?
Yeah, well, I've got, I probably alluded to or said, I've got a couple of young kids. So there's a lot of family activities, lots of puzzles, going for walks in the woods to playgrounds and all that. I try to, when I go to these playgrounds with my kids, I bring my basketball, try to find playgrounds where there's a court right next to a playground, because I like to shoot around a little bit. And then hiking is my other big one. I live about 2 hours south of the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and I'm trying to get through all 48 4,000 footers. I'm a little over halfway there. So that's my other, my special, meditation place is in the mountains.
Do you find it difficult to switch off your work brain and transition into resting mode? Do you have any tips for doing that?
Yes, I do. And yes, I do. I'm not great at it. But one of the ways I've found to kind of set me up for that, at least give me the opportunity to switch off, is the same way I start my day with my planner, I also end it with my planner. So I'll review everything I wanted to get done that day. And anything I didn't get through, I'll push it into the next day, make sure I start planning my next morning before I wrap up work. And just so when I start the next day, I come in and I already have a good sense of what I want to get done. It may have changed a little bit overnight, or maybe I have my stand-up and I have to make a couple tweaks, but that takes some of the less productive stress out of my brain, because I've gotten things out of my head that I might otherwise have been thinking about during my personal time. I got it into my planner, and that gives me a little bit of peace of mind. But yeah, that's my short answer, is yes and yes.
It's a hard thing to tackle. And what's one habit that in the past year you've implemented that's really improved your life?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have felt at all comfortable doing a podcast like this a year ago, because the planner, the habit of using a daily planner and daily meditation is a fairly new one. It did start in the last year, and it's made me feel a lot more confident that I've got a good system for organization in place. And those two have really changed my life at work and personally. Feel a lot more, less stressed out about maybe missing something or letting something fall through the cracks. And also just, like practicing mindfulness or meditation, just being more mindful about the decisions I'm making, the way I act, right, at work, in my personal life. It all feels very good, and it makes me feel very productive.
And so what does your working setup look like? Do you work from home or from a space? I can see you probably at home right now.
Yeah. This is like a 3-season porch addition off my house. It's the only room I can close myself off from the kids. I've got a shower curtain over a sliding door next to me. But yeah, I'm at home. I think my ideal scenario, I love being remote. I love being, right next to my family. I love being able to get home for dinner with the kids every day consistently, whereas before it depended. But I think my balance will be, as soon as we get into a slightly better place with COVID, and I think we're nearly there, knock on wood, try to find a very local co-working space so I can keep I'll have a commute, but hopefully it's no more than 5 or 10 minutes, hopefully closer to 5. But I still get, I get the benefit of being very close to home, while at the same time getting a little bit of a dedicated space where I can, turn on my work mind, turn off my work mind. I think that will help with that shift of going on and off.
Was Appcues in person before the pandemic? Did you work in person?
Yep. I think 98% of the company was in Boston in an office. Yeah. We're fully remote from here on out. We had a lease. We let it expire. We were committed to being remote. So
how was that transition at the beginning?
We were all pretty nervous about it. A handful of us, at least a handful of us on the management team, were kind of concerned. We were very much like, in-office culture is so important. And I think it can be for some companies. Getting together in person is certainly going to be important. We'll need to put effort into that. But we have seen no real negative impact whatsoever. Productivity has been great. People have been happy. Our eNPS survey that we send out, it's employee NPS, was great. The results were great. So it seems like everybody's happy, healthy, productive, and the missing those in-person interactions, we'll try to make up for that a little bit with. I think we'll do 2 retreats a year, and maybe more frequent departmental get-togethers in person once it's fully safe to do so.
All right, my final question for you is: who do you think we should have next on this podcast?
So actually, I just reached out to her yesterday with a question about remote working. She's an expert at it. Justine Jordan at WildBit, I would love to hear from. She seems to really have her stuff together, and the few conversations I've had with her, I learned something every time. And before WildBit, I think she was at Help Scout and Litmus. So she's been through a number of successful companies.
I'll have to reach out to her and get some tips on remote working. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Marketing Routines. Thank you so much for speaking with me and answering all my questions and giving the listeners some new things to check out and try out, including that tablet you mentioned. I'm definitely going to try that, to check that out. And you can get a free trial of Appcues at appcues.com. And I really recommend you check out Product-Led Growth Collective and the really good UX blog that Eric helps run. All of everything I mentioned just now and everything that Eric mentioned in this episode linked in the show notes page on podcast.wordable.io. Do you have any final words before we end this episode?
No, just thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate all the kind words again. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to Marketing Routines. If content publishing is a part of your daily routine, or even if someone else on your team is handling it, Wordable makes exporting documents from Google Drive to your CMS so much faster and easier. You'll have your document formatted and published in 1 minute instead of the usual hour it would take you to optimize everything. You can try it out for yourself with your first 3 exports free at wordable.io.